So, when you hear the name John Milton, your mind probably jumps straight to epic poetry, right? Paradise Lost, angels, demons, the whole shebang. But what if I told you that Milton himself believed there was another art, an art even more essential than poetry? He saw it as the foundation for everything, every argument, every idea, and that art was logic. Today, we're diving into his incredibly sharp and honestly super useful guide to one of the most powerful tools in logic, the concept of opposites.
Milton actually kicks things off with this powerful quote from Virgil. And it's just a perfect gut punch of an example, isn't it? No safety in war, peace demands all. It sets up this absolute black and white contrast. War and peace, you can't have both. They're presented as these two totally separate, mutually exclusive realities.
Okay, so we get it. War and peace are opposites. That feels, well, obvious. But here's the thing. For a mind like John Milton's, obvious just wasn't going to cut it. He needed to know why. What are the actual mechanics here? What's the deep, fundamental rule that makes two things not just kinda different, but completely, diametrically opposed? That's what we're going to unpack.
All right, Section 1, Milton's Art of Reasoning. Before we can get to opposites, we have to understand where Milton was coming from on logic itself. And for him, this was not some boring, stuffy subject you fall asleep to in class. No way. He saw logic as the master key that could unlock every other field of knowledge. He called it the primary of all arts.
And his definition, it's so simple, but it's also incredibly profound. For Milton, logic is just the art of reasoning well. And that little word, well, is doing some serious heavy lifting. It doesn't just mean thinking, it means thinking correctly, thinking knowingly, and thinking efficiently. It's about having precision and really a purpose behind your thoughts.
And get this, he believed this entire essential art boiled down to just two things. That's it. First, you have to discover your arguments. Find the ideas, the reasons, the concepts. Then second, you have to arrange them. You put them in an order that actually makes sense, that builds a solid case, and leads you somewhere meaningful. Simple, right? But also incredibly complex. And that first part, discovering arguments, well, that requires a map of how all ideas relate to each other.
So, let's look at that map. Section 2, agreeable versus disagreeable. Milton's map of ideas starts with this one big, crucial fork in the road. He says every single argument you could ever make is either going to be agreeable or disagreeable with the point you're trying to make.
Okay, so what does that mean? Well, agreeable arguments are the ones that kind of nod along with each other. They work together. Cause and effect is a perfect example. It's raining, so the ground is wet. One thing confirms the other. Disagreeable arguments, as you can probably guess, are the ones that clash. They push back. And honestly, this is the first step in any good debate, right? Figure out what we agree on and pinpoint where the disagreement actually is. For us, we're heading down that path of disagreement because that's where the opposites are hiding.
But hold on, because, of course, Milton being Milton, he demands even more precision. See, not all disagreements are created equal. Some things are just diverse. Think about the words eloquent and handsome. Someone can be one without the other, sure, but they don't cancel each other out. They're just different. We're on the hunt for something much, much stronger than that. We're looking for true, absolute opposition. All right, we're here. Section 3, the nature of opposites. We've followed the trail of disagreement all the way to its most extreme end. We're looking past stuff that's just different, and we're zeroing in on things that are in total conflict. So let's get right to the heart of it. What makes something an opposite?
And this is the key distinction. Look, a blue car is different from a red one, right? But they can both sit in the same parking lot. They can exist at the same time. But what about a car that's moving? Can it also be stationary at the exact same moment? No way. One state completely, totally wipes out the other. And Milton gives us a super precise rule to spot this kind of perfect, total opposition.
And here it is. This is Milton's beautiful, elegant definition. He says opposites are contraries, which are absolutely opposed to each other, as if from a distance. I love the image he gives us here. He wants you to picture 2 points at the opposite ends of a circle's diameter. See, it's not just that they're different, it's that they're the furthest possible distance apart within the same shared idea. It's direct, it's total, and it's absolute opposition.
Now, that cool geometric idea translates into a really strict logical test.
It's what we can call the law of opposites. For two things to be true opposites, you can't apply them to the same thing, in the same part of it, in the same way, at the exact same time. It sounds complicated, but it's not. Like, you can be healthy today and sick tomorrow, right? But can you be both healthy and sick right this second, in the same respect? Of course not. Just think about how many arguments today get completely tangled up just because people aren't this precise.
Okay, moving on to section 4, kinds of opposition. Because once you have this really clear framework, you start to notice something interesting. Even inside this strict definition, not all opposites act the same way. And Milton's logic, of course, gives us a way to categorize them and really understand how they work.
And here is a brilliant example of a key distinction he makes. Some opposites have a middle ground, right? Between the extremes of pure white and pure black, you've got a whole spectrum of gray. But other opposites, they don't have a middle at all. You're either healthy or you're sick. There's no in between. For pairs like that, one has to be true and the other has to be false. And knowing which kind of opposite you're dealing with, that's everything. It tells you if there's room for compromise or if you're stuck with a hard binary choice.
And then there's this other category that is just so fascinating. He calls them relatives. Now, these are opposites that paradoxically can't exist without each other. Think about it. Can you have a father without a son or daughter? Can you even make sense of the word teacher without the idea of a student? No! They are in opposition for sure, but they are completely dependent on each other for their very meaning, for their very existence.
All right, section 5, logic as a weapon. So you might be thinking, okay, this is kind of neat, but why does all this categorizing actually matter? Well, because this is not just about sorting words into neat little boxes. When you understand opposites with this kind of precision, it becomes an incredibly powerful tool, almost like a weapon in any argument. It lets you build arguments that are absolutely airtight and, just as importantly, tear down ones that are weak.
And Milton gives us this great example. It's a real zinger from the famous Roman orator Cicero. He was in a debate with the Epicureans, and look at what he does. He's not just saying, I disagree with you. Oh no, he's laying a brilliant logical trap.
Okay, so check out this move. It's so clever. Cicero starts by setting up man and beast as true opposites. Then he argues that the highest good for a beast is pleasure. Now, because he's established them as perfect opposites, his logic is inescapable. If pleasure is the highest good for one, then according to the law of opposites, it cannot possibly be the highest good for the other. Boom. It is a devastatingly effective argument, and it's built entirely on a crystal clear definition of opposition.
And really, that's the big takeaway from all of this. It's what Milton's getting at. When you can define your terms with absolute clarity, especially the things you're setting up as opposites, you basically control the entire logical framework of the debate. That kind of precision, well, that's power.
Which, of course, brings us right back to our world today. I mean, think about the huge ideas we argue about all the time. Freedom versus security, justice versus order, the individual versus the community. But are we defining our terms with the kind of rigor Milton would demand? Are they really opposites according to his rules? Is there a middle ground we're ignoring? Or, and this is the scary question, are we just using fuzzy, undefined words, making a whole lot of noise without ever actually reasoning well?